Go find your water meter right now, before you watch one more minute of this. Outside by the curb, in a pit under a metal lid, or on the basement wall where the line comes in. Look for the small triangle, or the red sweep hand. Now go shut off every tap, every toilet, the ice maker, and walk away for 15 minutes. Come back and look again. If that triangle moved, you are losing water somewhere in a wall you cannot see. A quarter turn in those 15 minutes is about a gallon an hour, 700 gallons a month, and about $11 on a Cleveland bill. That is the cheap part. The expensive part is the framing behind the tile, going soft at 60% moisture, quiet, for a year. 34 years running pipe is my whole credential. Nothing to buy at the end of this. Last November, a woman on a Tuesday in Parma showed me a ceiling stain the size of a dinner plate, 6 months of a toilet flapper, not a burst pipe. Here is what nobody says out loud. A burst main gets fixed the same day, because it screams. A slow leak gets paid for twice, once in the water bill and once in the joist. You are not paying for parts, you are paying for the truck in your driveway. 12 places it hides. First one is the one nobody checks. Number 12. The toilet flapper that runs 6 minutes an hour. Lift the lid off your toilet tank and set it flat on the floor. Squeeze food coloring into the tank water until it goes dark and do not flush. Walk away for 15 minutes. No flushing, no faucets. Come back and look down into the bowl, at the water, not the rim. Color in that bowl means the flapper is leaking, quietly, all day and all night. A flapper in that condition runs about 6 minutes out of every hour. Call it 72 gallons a day going down the drain with nobody home. Money down the bowl. On my bill that is right around $12 a month, every month, forever. Here is the mechanism, and it is dumb. Chlorine hardens the rubber until it stops laying flat on the seat. Mineral scale builds a small ridge on that seat, and the flapper rocks on the ridge. Quiet as breathing. Water walks past it into the bowl and makes no sound at all. No drip, no hiss, nothing your ear can find from the hallway. The fix is 12 minutes and a flapper. Shut the supply, flush the tank dry, unclip the old one, clip the new one on. 4 minutes, tops. Then run a scouring pad around the seat until your thumb finds no ridge. That last step is the one the contractor can't afford to do this way. He has a minimum charge and a schedule that does not bend. He swaps the flapper, the ridge stays, and the new rubber wears a groove into it. Then you are back at the coloring test before the year is out. Number 11. The ice maker line behind the refrigerator. Pull the refrigerator out from the wall, slowly, and look at the floor behind it. Look for a stain shaped like a teardrop, dried hard at the edges. Now run a dry paper towel along the small line that feeds the ice maker. Feel for grit. White crust on that line or its valve means water has been leaving for months. That line sits under 60 psi of standing pressure, day and night, year after year. One drop every 10 seconds is about half a gallon a day into the subfloor. Behind a refrigerator, nobody moves. The mechanism is vibration. The compressor shakes that little valve every time it cycles, and the washer inside flattens. Every cycle, a little. Flat washer, slow weep, and the refrigerator parks right on top of the evidence. Here is the number that decides, and it is no judgment call. Any white mineral crust at all, that valve gets replaced today, not this fall. That choice is $20 against a floor somebody tears out. Cheap against ruined subfloor. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, and I do not blame the man. Pulling your refrigerator out and waiting on a paper towel costs him 20 minutes. He will snug the nut down, feel it go dry, and go. It will be dry for about 4 months. 4 months, then wet. Walt taped a strip of brown grocery paper behind his icebox for exactly this. Paper tells you weeks before the floor does. Same trick, one room over. Which brings me to the next one. Number 10. The washing machine standpipe that backs up half an inch. Start a load of laundry and stand there with a flashlight through the drain cycle. Point the light down the standpipe, the tall open pipe the washer hose hooks into. Watch how high the water climbs while the pump is pushing. That is the whole test. A clean 2-inch standpipe takes everything that machine sends without ever filling up. If the water climbs within 2 inches of the top, you have a partial clog. Half an inch of backup, once a week, is enough to rot a wall plate, every wash day. Here is what happens and why you never see it. The water crests, runs down the outside of the pipe, and soaks the floor plate. It wicks up into the studs and sits there, wet, week after week. Wet studs, no stain. Lint and soap film narrow that trap arm a little more with every wash. Soap makes a grease, lint sticks to the grease, and the pipe closes like an artery. The number that decides is 2 inches of clear pipe above the water line. Below that, you clean it this weekend. This weekend, not spring. 2 gallons of tap water at 140 degrees, poured slow down the standpipe. Then a hand auger, turned slow on the way back out. 20 minutes. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, because he bills the stop. He snakes it, hears it gurgle down, and he is gone before your machine drains again. He never watched a full cycle, and the cycle is the whole test. Number 9. The air conditioner condensate line in the attic. Take a flashlight and a cup of water up into the attic on a hot afternoon. Find the air handler and the metal pan sitting under it. Pour the cup into that pan, then stand there and watch it. It should be gone quickly, with no puddle left standing in the corner. Gone in seconds. If it sits, your condensate line is slimed shut, and the clock has already started. On a 90-degree day, that unit pulls 2 or 3 gallons of water out of your air. All of it leaves through one plastic line, sloped 1/8 of an inch per foot. One line, that is all. Algae loves that line, because the water is warm, clean, and moving slow. The slime closes the pipe, the pan fills, and the pan hands the water to your ceiling. Slow, quiet, above the hallway. Now the number that decides. 60 seconds. Drain slower than that. You take a shop vacuum to the outdoor end of the line. 90 seconds of suction, and you will hear the slug of slime come loose. I will not stand here and claim a shop vacuum fixes a cracked drain pan. A cracked pan is a pan, and it gets replaced. That one costs money. But most of the time, that line is the entire problem. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, twice a year, for nothing. He is out there on a service call with a truck idling in your driveway. He clears the line, writes it up, and nobody ever checks the slope of the pipe. The slope is why the line grew algae in the first place. Number 8. The hose bib packing nut that weeps behind the siding. Go outside and put your hand on the spigot where the handle stem enters the body. Turn the water on halfway, leave it there, and keep your fingers on that nut. 60 seconds is enough. If you feel any bead of water at the stem, that nut is loose. On a frost-free silcock, the valve seat sits 18 inches inside your wall, back in the joist bay. So the packing that weeps does not weep on the brick. It weeps on the rim joist, behind the siding, where nobody has looked since 1978. Half a gallon a day is about 15 gallons a month. That is maybe 40 cents on your bill. 40 cents. That is why it never gets caught. And that is the whole trap. The bill never flinches, so nobody investigates. And the wood drinks it for 4 seasons. The fix is a wrench on that packing nut. 1/8 of a turn. No more. 1/8. Then turn the water on and feel again. If it still weeps, back it off and add a 50-cent graphite packing washer from the store. 8 minutes of work. The contractor can't afford to do this way, feeling a nut for 60 seconds on a house with no complaint yet. He needs a work order, and nobody writes a work order for 40 cents a month. The code board never wrote a rule for a nut that leaks slow, so it stays out there, quietly soaking a joist, until a floor gets soft. Do it once, do it slow, and it stays done. Number 7. The water heater T and P discharge pipe. Go stand at your water heater and look at the pipe running down the side toward the floor. Put a dry paper towel under the open end. Leave it there for 1 hour, and go do something else. Come back. If that towel has any darkening at all, your temperature and pressure valve is passing water. That valve is built to open at 150 pounds of pressure or 210 degrees. Nothing else. If it is passing at your normal 50 to 60 pounds, one of 2 things is true. Either the valve seat has scale on it, or your house pressure is climbing past 150 when the burner fires and the water has nowhere to expand. Thermal expansion. Most people have never heard the phrase. The towel decides it for you in 1 hour. For nothing. And here is why this one hides so well. That pipe usually ends 6 inches off a concrete floor, near a drain, in a room nobody sits in. Water leaves it as a dribble and evaporates before anyone walks by. Meanwhile, that same pressure is pushing on every joint upstairs. A pressure gauge that threads onto your laundry tub costs about $12. Read it cold, then read it again 20 minutes after a hot shower. If it climbed past 80, you have your answer. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, laying a paper towel down and coming back in an hour. He is on the clock with a truck idling. You are not paying for parts. You are paying for the truck in your driveway. Which brings me to the next one, because the same trick works under every sink in the house. Number 6. The angle stop ferrule under every sink. Open the cabinet under your kitchen sink and run one dry finger around the little nut where the supply line meets the valve. Not the top. The bottom one, where the valve meets the pipe coming out of the wall. If your finger comes back with any dampness, or if you feel crust, that ferrule is done. Just crust is enough. That crust is dried mineral, and mineral only gets there one way, carried out by water. So a dry, crusty nut is not a dry joint. It is a joint that leaks and evaporates on a cycle for years. A compression ferrule is a soft brass ring squeezed onto copper at about 15 foot-pounds. Over 20 years it work hardens, and the seal goes microscopic, 2 drops an hour. 2 drops an hour is half a teaspoon a day. Half a teaspoon. Call it pennies a year on your bill, and I want you to sit with that number. Half a teaspoon a day rots a cabinet floor and the subfloor under it. Remember the ceiling stain, 6 months in. This is where a lot of those start. The test costs a paper towel folded flat under the valve overnight. Dry in the morning means dry. The fix is a quarter turn snug on that nut, with 2 wrenches, one holding the valve body so you do not twist the stub out of the wall. 2 wrenches. A ferrule and nut is under $3 at Home Depot. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, checking 11 valves in a house nobody called about. He gets paid for the one that failed. That is a different kind of knowing, and in my experience, it is the more reliable one. Number 5. The tub overflow gasket nobody has ever seen. Go to your tub, fill it past the overflow plate, and watch the water go into that hole for 2 full minutes. Then look at the ceiling below, or open the access panel behind the tub if you have one. 2 minutes of overflow is the only test that finds this. Almost nobody has run it. Behind that chrome plate sits a rubber gasket the size of a coaster, squeezed between the tub wall and the overflow elbow by 2 small screws. Rubber has a working life around 20 years, and it flattens. Once flat, it passes water only when the level reaches the plate, which happens maybe 4 times a year in most houses. 4 times a year. That is why it stays hidden for decades. A leak that only runs when a kid fills the tub too high leaves no pattern anyone can trace. It just quietly wets the joist under the tub, then dries for 90 days, then wets again. Wet, dry, wet, dry. That cycle is what rots framing, more than steady water ever does. The gasket costs about $4. 2 screws, a flat blade screwdriver, 12 minutes, and you never have to think about it again. I am not going to tell you a gasket fixes a cracked tub shoe or a split drain elbow. Those are real and those are a different job. But most overflow leaks are that flat piece of rubber. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, filling a tub and standing there for 2 minutes on somebody's dime. Number 4. Straddle your toilet and rock it gently, side to side, using your knees. Not hard. Before you do, run a dry finger around the base where the porcelain meets the tile. If it comes back gritty and gray, that is old wax and dirty water, not mop water. Now rock it. If it shifts even 1/8 of an inch, the wax underneath is finished. That is the whole test, and it takes about 10 seconds. A wax ring holds a seal by staying squashed at about 1/4 inch thick under the constant weight of the fixture. It never cures, never hardens, never springs back once something moves it. So the day the toilet rocks, the seal opens on one side. Every flush after that pushes a small amount of water sideways into the flange gap. Not onto the floor, into the plywood under the flange, where nobody looks and nothing dries. Plywood swells, the flange bolts pull loose, the rocking gets worse, and the opening widens. 2 years of that turns a $4 part into an $1,100 subfloor job. Here is the number that decides. Any movement at all means pull it, not a little movement, any. When you set the new ring, snug the 2 flange bolts by hand until they stop, then a quarter turn with a wrench. That quarter turn is the whole trick, because porcelain cracks somewhere past it, and then you have bought a toilet. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, kneeling on a bathroom floor waiting for wax to seat under its own weight. He needs the truck rolling by 11. You have all afternoon, and patience is the only advantage we have left. Which brings me to the next one, because it needs the same patience. Number 3. Get in the shower with a dry hand, and press hard on the grout line where the floor meets the curb. Then look at your fingertip. If it is damp 40 minutes after anybody showered, water is sitting inside that joint. Grout is a filler, and filler is porous by design. The waterproofing is the pan liner underneath, and that liner is what fails. It folds up the curb and over the top, and the fold at the 2 front corners is where it splits. That corner moves every time somebody steps on it, maybe 800 times a year. Grout cannot move, so it cracks, hairline, under your foot, where you never see it. When the fold splits, water leaves the shower at floor level and runs the joist bay to the low corner. The stain shows up 11 feet away, over the dining room, and everybody blames the roof. Here is the test that decides it. Stuff a rag inside a sandwich bag into the drain, fill the pan to 1 inch, and mark the water with a pencil. Come back in 8 hours. Any drop below that pencil line means the liner, and no amount of grout will change that answer. No drop means your grout wants a bead of flexible caulk in that corner. About $6 at the Home Depot. $6 against a torn-out shower, which around Cleveland runs $7,000 and takes 11 days. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, leaving the only shower in the house flooded for 8 hours. He has 4 calls stacked behind you. Number 2. Go down to the basement and wrap a dry paper towel around the stem of your main shutoff, right behind the handle. Leave it there until tomorrow. If it comes up stained or stiff, the packing inside that nut has dried out. Packing is a ring of graphite-soaked rope squeezed around the stem by a nut you can reach with 1 wrench. It seals by pressure, not by fit. And that pressure bleeds off over about 20 years. Then the valve weeps, maybe 2 drops an hour, straight down the body onto whatever sits under it, usually the sill plate. 2 drops an hour is under a gallon a month, which never shows on a bill. It shows as green crust on the valve, then a dark ring on the concrete, then soft wood at the rim joist. The number is 1/6 of a turn on the packing nut, with the water still on. 1/6. Then stop and watch it for 10 minutes. Snug it past that and you bind the stem, and a stem you cannot turn is worse than a stem that weeps. A packing kit in the plumbing aisle is $3 and change. A weeping main that finally seizes is a service call and a shutoff at the street. Manufacturers stopped assuming anybody would service these, and the trade stopped teaching it around the time everything went to quarter-turn valves. Walt showed me this in 1994, and I never paid for it again. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, standing in a basement 10 minutes watching a nut he already tightened. Which brings me to the last one. Number 1. Take your shoes and socks off and walk your ground floor slowly, first thing in the morning. Before anybody runs hot water, you are feeling for one warm patch with cold floor all around it. Bare feet read about 1 degree of difference, which beats most instruments in your house. A hot line under a slab that is opened up dumps 140-degree water into wet sand. That heat comes up through 4 inches of concrete and sits there, a warm oval about 2 feet across. That is the house telling you months before the water does. Confirm it 2 ways. Close the cold inlet valve on top of your water heater, then read the meter triangle for 15 minutes. Still moving means the leak is on the cold side. Stopped means hot, and hot under a slab is the warm spot you just stood on. Then put your ear flat on the floor at that oval, with the house quiet. A slab leak sounds like a faucet running 2 rooms away, all night, every night. I am not going to tell you a slab leak is a Saturday job with a wrench. That one is a real repair, either a reroute overhead or a jackhammer. And around here, it runs about $4,000. But the difference between finding it in March and finding it in September is 14,000 gallons and a rotted sill plate. The contractor can't afford to do it this way, walking a floor barefoot for 6 minutes before he quotes anything. He gets paid to jackhammer, not to stand still. Here's your list, and it is short, because the whole point of this one is that finding costs nothing. 5 things, total. A packet of toilet flappers, $4. A tube of flexible caulk, rated for wet areas, $6. A brass hose bib packing kit, $3. $3, that one. 1 braided stainless supply line, about $6, and buy it now rather than at 10 at night on a Sunday. A roll of plain white paper towels you already own. That is the whole cart. And at the Home Depot on a weekday morning, it comes to under $20. Nobody sponsors this channel, and nobody is going to. Never will. You are not paying for parts. You are paying for the truck in your driveway. Remember that ceiling stain I mentioned? 6 months of quiet water got there before you ever saw brown. 6 months. Every test in this video takes 15 minutes or less, and none of them cost anything. A burst pipe gets fixed the same day. A slow one gets paid for twice, in the water bill and in the framing. Paid twice. Next week, the 10 minutes after you finish a repair and think you are done. That is where the mistake lives. It does not show up that day or that month, and when it does show up, it looks like somebody else's fault. There is exactly one mistake that will ruin the whole thing, and I'm going to show you what it is before you make it. Slow, tight, done. Now tell me where you are watching from. Anywhere at all. City, state, county, whatever you have got. 34 years running pipe in Cleveland taught me every region rots a little differently, and I read every one of these.